And I'm going to ask you to translate. Don't get stuck in traditions or practices. You have to feel something. Like we say, we honor all paths. Okay? But you can't live all paths. You have to land somewhere. You can't be in the midst of all of the activist social justice work and be a hermit. They're equally good. You can't be tending to the ground. You can't be doing that, at the same time that you're often sailing the seas and doing something else. It's okay. We can't be everywhere, but be somewhere. Be somewhere. Okay? Translate it. I know that word, Lord, used to just send me over the roof. And I had to do a lot of healing around that. And I know the word God just, gives some people Tourette's. Just breathe. God doesn't care what you call it. I know if I were to go back to my spiritual tradition and if I were to say Mother, Father, God, oh my Lord, I think the roof would cave in. And it's just stuff. Okay? It's just stuff. It's just concepts. It's just ideas. But don't let your rejection of somebody else's idea stop you from finding the truth within yourself. Okay? We're so busy sometimes in rebellion against religion, we're not going deep enough in our own spirituality. So I don't care what you call it. But I know that there is some place in each and every one of us that is a place of revelation. Go there. Allow yourself to go there. For some people, it could be walking, a walking meditation. For somebody, it's sitting in front of the sunset. For somebody else, it may be playing with the little toddlers. It could be gardening. For some of you, maybe it's your artwork or your music, singing. It could be when you're writing and doing your journaling. It could be, all of the above. It could be anything. But make sure that it's something. Something. Most of us treat our spirituality like binge eaters. Like binge eating, where we're either not eating or we're eating a bunch of junk food, and then all of a sudden, in one 5-minute setting, we try to consume all of the spiritual food we should have been doing for the last 30 days or 30 years. And just like your spiritual, just like your physical body, it needs to process. You can't do like just done that. You can't say to anybody, well, we ate last week. We slept last year. I used to exercise when I was in high school. Doesn't that count? And your body is going, what have you done for me lately? And your spirituality is the same way. It's like, what have you done for me lately? There's a reason why we call it a practice. Because you practice. It's not something you do the to-do list and check it off. This is daily discipline. Daily discipline. It's not about staying on. It's about correcting quickly. It's about allowing your time off to get less and less. You're going to get off. There's no chiropractic adjusted to end all chiropractic adjustments. We're constantly tuning like an instrument. You keep retuning it and retuning it. Life happens, it has stressors. So you keep bringing it back. You keep bringing it back. Are you with me? Your practice is there to help bring you back. And you do it often enough. I like the way that Howard Thurman says it, so that with unconscious awareness and deliberate intent, I can be a more gracious human being. Then my intent has been so deliberate in doing this that I'm not even conscious of bringing myself back. Because it's just how I live my life. It's just what I do. We've been talking all this month about possibility. They're saying that in my topic today, like, don't confuse the two. Don't confuse possibility and probability. Don't limit your possibility thinking with probability theory. Okay? Probability is just measurements of what already has been. That's all. And it projects into the future what has been. I'm not saying don't be informed by the past. Anybody who's ever listened to me knows that I'm quite a history buff. Okay? But it's to connect the dots, not to allow history to define the future, but to be able to understand where we are now. See, you can't move from someplace you don't know where you are. You can't change a habit you don't know you have. You can't make corrections in society with stuff you're in denial about. Okay? So there's an assessment, you recognize it, but that's not to stay there. It's to be able to understand what you need to do from here. Too many of us are trying to get the sense of what's possible for us, what we can do based upon what's already been. And I remember it went off like a light bulb for me. One day when my mentor Beckwith said, your dreams are waiting for you to come true. You're waiting for your dreams to come true. Your dreams are waiting for you to come true. Feel that. Your dreams are waiting for you to come true. We keep looking for the evidence, he said, that something is possible, but you're not going to see it because it's waiting for you to do it. You can't see your life demonstrated out there because it's your life. You can't wait for somebody else to show you your life. It's your life. It's your life. Do you have the audacity to be willing to conceive and to perceive things that yet to have been? I remember one of my heroes growing up was Bobby Kennedy Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr. And I never will forget that day that he was assassinated. He was assassinated very close to my home in Los Angeles. He was on his campaign trail at the time, and I happened to be doing a report on him as part of a class assignment. And I remember one of the things that he said that just has become part of my life. He says, some people dream, some people imagine, how did he put it? Some people see what has been and ask why. And others imagine what has never been and ask why not. Some people look at what has been and ask why, and other people look at what hasn't been and ask why not. Why not? You know, I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but it was just mentioned that the Diversity Center called me up, and I found out yesterday that I'm getting a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Diversity Center, along with other LGBT activists. You can't wait for permission. You can't wait for other people to value you. You can't wait to see yourself through the eyes of other people. There is something within you that has to say, I am. And that's enough. I am. To be able to go up against anything. There was nothing, not nada, growing up that said a person like me was going to be able to be successful. Nothing. Nada. Don't look for the outside. Don't look for the evidence from the outside. You claim it on the inside. Because God has imbued each and every one of us with creativity, with genius, with intelligence, with desire, with passion, with talent, with all kind of things that are just waiting for us. Your dreams are waiting for you to come true. Dare to believe, dare to get off that bell curve. Because as I've been talking about this, in this probability, we just take the things that have occurred, we plot them, see what kind of sequences, we see there's some kind of pattern that typically happens, and one of the most common patterns is the bell curve, which basically says that there's some place where the majority is going to cluster. And there's fewer on either end, higher or lower or better or less or whatever that is, but that the majority is going to cluster in the middle. Okay? And then when they're giving you the statistics, they'll tell you how many were from the left or the right of the middle. The standard deviation. You can only be a deviant so much to still be included in the sampling population. The pioneers aren't in the middle. The miracles aren't in the middle. The miracles are on the sides. Are you with me? The miracles are on the margins. So here's what happens. There's a catch-up that plays. You have people who see great vision. They see possibility. They dare to live it. And then everybody else catches up. They catch up. Don't you go out to the naysayers. You bring the naysayers into the center with you. This is a mistake that people make all the time in organizing. So I've been a professional organizer like most of my life and training with that. And if you can imagine concentric circles, and every movement every passion, every idea, every collaboration starts with a critical nucleus. It's like a critical mass that's the center. The ones who've catched the glimpse, who come together. Right? Now, the lethal thing that most people will do is look out on the far margin at the ones who are furthest away from them and say, how can we bring them in? How are we ever going to reach this one or that one? That's not your problem. The low-hanging fruit, we call it. Grow that nucleus out the next one. Don't worry about the ones that are so far over there. There's somebody else that's close to where you are. There's somebody who's ripe for that message or ripe for that glimpse of possibility that you see. You enlist them. You have conversations with them. Okay? Then that grows bigger. And then it's the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Okay? So by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, everybody's already with you. Because it starts with your brother and your sister and your partner and your sons and your daughters and your co-workers and your aunts and your uncles and your neighbors and all the people. And then are you with me? The next and the next. So you have more and more people standing in that possibility. The other word for this is demand. Where you create the demand for what's possible. And not just sitting in what's been probable. Are you listening to me? You create the demand for what's possible. And the universe always responds. It always responds. But we have to get out of mediocre thinking. We have to. I'm surprised I'm going to go here. But there's an example of this, how we have to get out of mediocrity. And I know I've shared this at least once before. So growing up in Los Angeles, I grew up in an area where the schools were very multi-ethnic. Diversity has always been a big passion of mine. And there was a lot of white flight that happened in the late 60s after the riots and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So my junior high originally was a third white, a third black, and a third Japanese American. There weren't really many Latinos in the area at the time, some, but like not many. By the time I finished high school, it was 75% black and 25% Japanese. There were 6 white people in my graduating class of 964. The white people took to the valley. That's when the San Fernando Valley first started to happen. So for various reasons that I will not go into, all the Japanese kids were in the advanced placement classes. And 6 black students, none of them males. So I happened to be one of the people who managed to be in all the advanced placement classes. These is where you can take the college classes on the high school campuses and stuff. And this little cadre of mine, we had been together through junior high and high school. So the people that I actually was in the classrooms with were predominantly Japanese. And there was this little drill that they would do. Every semester, every student, every class. And we black kids would just sit back and let them go for it. And they would bargain. There were these 3 things that they would bargain for. No bell curve. Straight percentage. And anybody that earns an A gets an A. Okay, listen to where I'm going. No bell curve, straight percentage, and anybody that earns an A gets an A. The way that our public school system was set up is that teachers were penalized for giving, quote unquote, too many A's. That if the vast majority of the students made A's, there was a speculation that the teacher wasn't doing a good job. No, listen. So there was not even the expectation that the students were going to master the material, and furthermore, the teachers had a disincentive because they were penalized if the students mastered the information. I am not making this up. I'm not making this up. What does this say about our society? Get what I'm saying? What does this say about our possibility? There was already the assumption that the vast majority of people were just going to be what they considered to be, quote unquote, like this average, and were not going to master the material. So they said no bell curve because, as they put it, there's not going to be 10 points. Well, they didn't have this kind of attitude, but they were much nicer. They were. Listen, when this is all over, there's not going to be 10 points between us. And if you do a bell curve, somebody's going to fail at 93%. Because there's not going to be 10 points between us. Straight percentage. Just however we do it, get it. Can I tell you what that did in terms of consciousness? It was revolutionary just for the teachers to wrap their brains around the fact that all of their students could get A's. And the drama that we used to have to go through with the system and the board and whatnot about all these A's coming out. But you know what it did for us? We weren't competing with each other. We weren't competing with each other. As a matter of fact, it was just the opposite. These Japanese kids were so organized, we'd go into the chemistry class at the beginning of the year, they'd plan the whole thing out. So every experiment, this group's going to have this experiment, and this group's going to have that experiment. You do it ahead of time, teach the rest of us. If I wasn't at school, the sun would not set before the assignment was somehow delivered to me. We had each other's backs because there was the expectation of the possibility that we were all going to be good and that we were all going to be great. I made the naive assumption of thinking that this was what college prep was about. I had no idea that this was Japanese culture. So when I went to USC at 16 years old and was looking for the groups and looking for oh my God. They just knew I was the last affirmative action student that was trying to cheat off their papers. It was not pretty culture shock. Because there was not the sense of possibility that we were all going to make it. Do you hear what I'm saying? I am talking about a revolution of values. A revolution of values. Because if we're stuck in that competition rat race, wanting to make sure that we get ahead and the other people don't get ahead, it's going to stop us. It's going to stop us, and we can't advance as much as we want to advance. Can we have a world of possibility that says everybody can make it? Breathe that in. That's what we're talking about here. Is it radical? Yes. Does it work? Yes. I know it works when you're looking for ways that you can collaborate with one another. And I knew in my gut that this was true when I saw the U.S. Post Office partner with FedEx and UPS. Listen to what I'm saying. The people who are in your same line, they're not your competition. You find ways to work together so that the pot is bigger. When I was growing up, there weren't malls. That was a later thing, the malls. San Fernando Valley was one of the first malls. So it was unconscionable to have stores too close to each other. It was the same thing with movie theaters. You had a single movie theater and you had a double feature. Imagine that. So you had a Sears over here and you had a Penny's over here or this or that. Okay? Don't want to get too close for competition. But what happens when they put them all together? You got a mall. You've got a bigger pool. There's greater demand. So not only do those anchors get theirs, but now you've created a market for the secondary and the tertiary group. So then you can have a department store that has everything, but then you can have a shoe store and a jewelry store and all these other things because you've come together. Are you with me? You come together. Breathe that in. This is radical now. In those lives, the people, places, and things that you think are in your way, or that you're competing with, or they're getting ahead of you, or whatever that is, just for a moment, take that off and say, we can all win. There's a role for each of us here, and there might even be some ways that we can support each other. Imagine that. Can you do that with your exes? Whoa, got a little quiet. Your exes and their new partners? Ooh, got real quiet. Can you imagine? Now, I know things may hurt for a little while and there may be some drama. But do we have any witnesses in the house of what can happen when you're willing to heal? New configurations of families and relationships and all kind of things if you don't get stuck and dwell in the land of possibility, not probability. Yes? So I had a directive yesterday to bring Wilhelmina out. Now, so Wilhelmina is my alter ego. So you were feeling me getting into her already. Wilhelmina's from the hood, and she's got issues. She has issues with our spiritual stuff and how we do things. And Wilhelmina always wants to know why. So I am stretching all the boundaries of possibility. And at my TEDx talk, Berkeley, on February the 6th, I'm bringing out Wilhelmina. I'm doing a talk on forgiveness, and I'm going to be using some examples from the prison outreach and some of the things we cover in the classes. And I'm going to do, for TEDx Berkeley, Wilhelmina's Why I Got to Forgive. So pray for me. We're also going to set up, because it's going to live stream, we'll also have something here at church. So that, and I think my slot is, if I'm not mistaken, my time is 2:36 p.m. On February the 6th, 2016. So I've never seen Wilhelmina. I've actually never seen it. So I realized I think that's why I was being asked to do Wilhelmina. So this is just a perfect piece for possibility. Perfect piece. And it's entitled, Why Not Me? Why not me? Why? Why? Why not me? What's so wrong about me and right about you that no matter what it is that I do, it never turns in the time that I have in mind. It becomes the kind to meet my plan so that I can demand the goodness that eludes, intrudes my psychic space, hopes and dreams that simply dribble into my thimble, not pour into the buckets that the Luckets always have. Oh, you know the Luckets, the lucky ones. They have all the fun. The sun shines more brightly for them. The gems, their every whim responded to, like they got their own genie in a bottle, obeying their every command. My genie throttles, dissing my demands. Why? Why? Why not me? Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Sidekick by the hero with no place to go. I am treading water below the ones already drowning. Even the victims are ahead of me. Always on the outside, peeking in at the party. Maybe my invitation's just tardy. But it never, ever arrives. I dive at a chance to be on the team. But my dream is reamed by a lifetime of sitting on the bench. Sitting on the bench, its own kind of lynch that's just squeezing my soul. Why? Why? Why not me? Because if any of this spiritual stuff is true, then I don't have to do anything but bring my deepest intent to the table, be able to relentlessly revive, thrive on what I know, don't throw a fit when the facts don't fit, and don't act like the facts are all that, just without the chips. If everything is equally available, why do I even bother to label things as his or hers or theirs or not ours or maybe or lady or probable or impossible? Why do I even bother to label things as good news or bad news, refusing to say it just is? I say, well, I don't want to be wearing no labels, but I am dishing them out like they are name tags so I know what to call things, instead of piercing through to what's true beyond all the appearances. Why? Why? Why not me? If the goodness is at hand, then why do I stand in the soup line of life instead of assuming my assignment at the banquet? Retelling, child selling my story about how hard it was just to get into the line. But if the line ain't nothing but a mental construct, then I can deconstruct it with constructive, conscious, co-creative consciousness, my reality realigned, redesigned in alignment with spiritual truth. The sleuth in me no longer searching for what's wrong, but affirming what's right in spite of what's in my sight. A light that's always pointing to a better day, a brighter day, an awareness that stays in the forefront of my mind. So, why not me? Made in the image and the likeness of the Creator of all things, who praises the day that I was born. My sojourn no accident, but the imprint of the Master's hand, who plans for all of its creations the best that life has to offer. Oh, those coffers that are always flowing are overflowing on me. Why? Why? Because I am standing here standing in the path of all good things, as all good things are coming together for my good. Why not me? Are my tears not as salty? My fears just as faulty, my years less valuable because they are mine? Is my laughter less delightful, my knowing less insightful? Is my love less healing? Is my knowing less revealing? Is there a patent on enoughness? Toughness, no longer an answer, a cancer that's spreading within. Now, to win is no pretense, and not at somebody else's expense, because there is good and plenty for all of God's children. So why not me? An individualized expression of the divine, refined by the refiner's fire. My only desire is to be what God intended me to be. To see the world through the eyes of unity and equanimity. I am here for a purpose, you see. To let God be God, baby, as me. Me. Yeah. Love you. Love everybody.